So where do you draw that fine line between pumping all that extra energy into stuff and, the big yellow buttons with the red circles around it and the arrows pointing at it and you've turned into a douchebag? Where's that? Where do you
Well,
draw that line?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. And
welcome to the Active Marketer Podcast, where we talk about how to design, automate, and scale your business to the next level using sales and marketing automation. You can find out all the tips, tactics, and techniques you need to get more customers and sell more stuff over at theactivemarketer.com. Now, here's your host, Barry Moore.
Welcome to the Active Marketer Podcast, where we talk about all things sales, funnels, and marketing automation. I'm your host, Barry Moore. I've been getting in a lot into copywriting lately, and I've been really enjoying a new copywriting podcast by copywriter Kevin Rogers called The Truth About Marketing. So I thought I'd have Kevin on the show. Kevin's got a really interesting background. Used to be a stand-up comedian and then turned to copywriting a few years back, and now runs a copywriting community called Copy Chief. So I wanted to learn more about copywriting, so who better to talk to than Kevin Rogers? And let's get into this week's episode, all about how you can do copywriting the right way. All right, I'd like to welcome to the show Kevin Rogers, copywriter extraordinaire and the chief in copychief.com. Kevin, welcome.
Thanks, Barry. It's good to be here.
Kevin, I'm really excited to have you on the show. You've got a new podcast, and I've already ripped through all the episodes and eagerly looking forward to the next one, The Truth About Marketing. What kind of prompted you to start your own podcast?
Thanks, man. Yeah. Well, I've always loved the format. I'm sort of addicted to a hot mic since, I started stand-up comedy when I was 18 years old and was very fortunate to have a steady gig for about a year and a half. So I spent, 6 nights a week talking into a microphone, and it really does become, I think, a bit of an addiction. Sometimes I see like famous people or like politicians who, even though they're getting, say, like, $100K or $200K a speech, you're going, you don't need that money. Why don't you go relax? Yeah. I think they're just really addicted to the sound of their voice magnified in some way. So I've always loved it. I've done some radio shows with a friend of mine. We had a show. We used to buy airtime on a local station. We had a show called The Inside Joke Show. And it was sort of ahead of its time because there's so many comedy channels on satellite radio and stuff now that are much like, we were doing produced bits, comedy sketches and stuff. And then we were interviewing comics. It was great fun. So I love it all, man. I love, if I could wake up every day and do nothing but focus on podcasting and audio and video, I would love that. That's sort of my dream, is like, can I just be a goof and enjoy conversations with people and have that be my gig? I think that's the victory.
Yeah, it's certainly a pretty cool medium, and it's a great way to reach people. And obviously, you're a natural at it from your background in stand-up comedy. So obviously, you transition from people who don't necessarily know your story. You transition from stand-up comedy to copywriting a while back. How long ago was that?
Yeah, I spent about a decade in each profession. So the actual transition happened right around turn of the century there. I think I officially stopped going on the road as I lived on the road, as a comic for about 7 or 8 years. And I made the conscious decision to stop traveling as a comic in around 1998. And I got married in 1999. Those things certainly went hand in hand. The ability to have a wife and not live in Motel 6s. And it was, an awkward transition, to be sure, because I was completely unhireable. I think I still am proudly unhireable now that I've created my own gig,
That's right.
But it was very awkward to try to get jobs with no resume. I can really, empathize with people who just don't want to work a normal gig out in the world and be told when to be somewhere and where to sit and how much money they can earn. But what else do I do? I don't want to be broke. I don't want to deal drugs. What do I do? And thankfully, we live in a time now where I don't want to say it's easy to do, but the barrier to marketing a value skill or discovering how you can earn money for doing something you love is pretty low compared to years past when you would have literally had to hang out a sign somewhere to have people know that you're in business.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And so that transition for you, I've seen you work from stage, so I know you've got the comedy chops, but we really wanted to get you on to talk about your copywriting chops and spend some of your time sharing some copywriting skills with the listener. So I think most of our listeners, would have their own business or are trying to start their own business, as you said, and get it off the ground, and are looking to implement, some email marketing automation, and copywriting into their business, and don't necessarily have the skills. And a lot of things the internet seems to be one of those places where, yes, you can get a legitimate business off the ground pretty easy, but you can get a whole lot of snake oil salesman, illegitimate type businesses off the ground pretty easy as well. So right. you got tons of people peddling the, this is the magic button for success online. You just got to do this one thing and everything's going to work out fine. And you're going to make tons of cash. But I think the guys who are really successful seem to be just sticking to the tried and true kind of direct response methods from the golden era of, postal mail. Would you say that's a fair statement?
Yeah, I would say that's a fair statement. I might add one caveat to that is that it just comes down to the value of what you're selling and your intentions behind it, right? So, because I've seen both things. I've seen high quality products marketed in a hypey way that's a real turnoff, and have it misrepresented that way just because the marketer, for whatever reason, felt like that's how you sell stuff. And then I've also seen stuff that wasn't quite as good and marketed skillfully, and it takes longer sometimes for people to figure out that they've been duped in a sense because the marketer seems so trustworthy. So it really starts with, how much do you believe in the value of what you sell? And so when I teach copywriting, Barry, the first step, and, this is not the sexiest thing to do, to lure, people into my world of here's how you write copy, because everybody wants a quick fix, right?
Yeah.
But it really does start with the research and understanding, yourself, your product, and your customer, your best prospect. And the good news is, for any small business owner, they're the best one to organize the material for a copywriter. And for that, I created a thing I called the Question Authority Worksheet. It's a series of questions that when you indulge in the process of answering them, it really lays out exactly what you need to share with your best prospects so that they can understand what you're offering and get excited about it. And that seems like the simplest thing in the world, but it's very easy to lose touch with that as a business owner for a couple of reasons. One is that we are so close to our product that we forget its nucleus and why we were inspired to create it and who it's really for. We get, caught up in the day-to-day stuff of running a business, and we get sort of used to dealing with our existing customers. And we forget how little somebody might know about what we're offering them in order to make it crystal clear exactly what it is and why they should be excited, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And another problem is that, the people, sometimes we run out of new people to tell about it, right? Because so much of what we do is online. The people in our lives don't want to hear this crap anymore, right? Like your spouse does not. She knows all about it, or he knows all about it. And so that, you don't kind of want to bore them with it again. And so, but you'll notice when you do get it in front of somebody who's a perfect prospect, almost accidentally say at a cocktail party or something, or even a stranger you meet at a coffee house or something, and you get excited all over to tell them about it, and you see them get excited all over about it, and you think, man, if I could just bottle this moment and turn this into my sales pitch, then I'd be set. And that is what you need to do, and that is quite possible to do, because copywriting is really just a transfer of information and enthusiasm about what you're selling. And so, I recommend to people, if they ever do live pitches, say, over Skype or on a phone, record those pitches or those question and answer sessions, and have those transcribed. And that's the nucleus of your copy right there, because it's the real genuine stuff.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That certainly rings true with me. I know my wife does not want to hear about any more marketing automation nonsense from me. But but it's exactly true. Like if I meet somebody and they ask me a couple questions, and I get all excited, and half an hour later I'm still talking about stuff, and you've got to get the big hook and pull me off stage and stop assaulting people with all the great things they can do. So it's certainly a process that I need to go. So how does that kind of process start?
Well, like I said, it starts with questions. So, and that's why I use the word indulge very specifically for that reason, because you need to give yourself permission to take something like the question authority worksheet and say, okay, I'm locking the door, phone's off. I am unavailable to the world right now, while I go through this. And then, you want to work yourself up as if you're having one of those great conversations, and you're just answering questions, but they're not just questions about, okay, what are all the features of your product? It's more about, what do you love? What's the first thought that hits your brain on most mornings? What makes you angry? What if you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about life in society, what would it be? These kinds of things that might not make it into the copy directly, because it may not just be necessary or appropriate for what you're selling, but it's really important that you bring that back to the surface, and because every bit of that, that part of you is a part of your product, and that is what will resonate, through the computer screen. There's a fascinating thing that happens when you, start a conversation. Like right now, Barry, you're in Australia and I'm here in Florida, and you and I are having a conversation, but we're live interacting, right? So we can feel each other's energy all the way across the world here.
Yeah.
But something happens when it's a one-sided conversation. So, for instance, where I learned this was, I used to do these news, we do these little rants for a Sunday morning news program here locally. And I had to get used to looking into a big, TV news camera, big cold lens, and read a teleprompter. And the guy who was the broadcaster who invited me to do these said to me, listen, you need to go big, because what feels over the top to you standing here is going to only come across as sort of normal conversation on the other side. The camera is going to eat up a good, 45% of all the energy you shoot into it, right, before it spits it out into somebody's living room, right? And so it's the same with sales copy. You've got to go big and go over the top, because you can always back it down later in editing. But if you start out in mid-range, it's going to come out really flat on the other side. Mm-hmm. So you need to indulge in this process of bringing yourself through these questions. What am I passionate about? Why does this matter? Why the hell should the person reading this message or seeing this video stop what they're doing and pay close attention to what I'm saying? What promise do I need to make them? Because the first thing they can pay you is their attention before they'll ever become a customer.
Yeah, very cool. So where do you draw that fine line between pumping all that extra energy into stuff and the big yellow buttons with the red circles around it and the arrows pointing at it, and you've turned into a douchebag. Where's that? Where do you
Well,
draw that line?
yeah, well, that's a good question, and that's then it's a matter of personal taste, I think, at that point, right? You hopefully have some kind of radar in place that makes you go, ugh, that's pretty distasteful. I hate when I see that.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't do it on my site, because you know what? It can happen incrementally. It's almost like a drug habit or something. It's like, why am I addicted all of a sudden? I just did it occasionally on the weekends before. It's like, especially if you're testing and you say, okay, I heard that, orange order now buttons work better than green ones. So let me try that. Ooh, that worked a little. Oh, now I read somewhere that if you put a red arrow pointing at it, look, it did convert a little bit. And next thing you know, like you said, you got blinking lights and crap all over your page, and you look like a real, sort of cheese ball. So you have to. Well, that's where it also helps to have good people around you who will point out. So, hey, what's really and what message are you sending here? So it's not always about conversions at the end of the day. And part of that, what will guide you there is really understanding your best customer. Are they drawn to sort of that big shiny promise of quick riches? Is that the kind of customer you want in your world? Like with Copy Chief, I know that I'm underselling it, like terribly underselling it. And I look at some of my people I could consider competitors or peers, and these people sell really hard, and every message they put out, there's always a number involved, some big awe-inspiring dollar figure. And I just think, that's my gauge, Barry, is like, if I catch myself saying, I've got to add some dollar signs into this copy or else people aren't going to convert. For me, that's when I need to probably do a little head check and say, have I lost my way? And you know what? Here's the thing. I'm not criticizing those people, because I think there's a valid excuse in the idea that, look, you're paying me to help you market your stuff, and I'm marketing hard to you, and you should just be learning from what I'm doing. If you like it and you're buying, then ask yourself, what am I doing to make you buy? And if you ask me, I'll probably tell you, because that's what you're paying me for. Yeah. Or if you're turned off by it, ask yourself why. And now you've found your line in the sand, right? But I'm just not the kind of guy who's comfortable constantly framing everything around money. I'd like to feel like I could help people also create this that fits their lifestyle as well as earns them good money.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's got to come back to being genuine to who you are and what your message is and who you're trying to sell to. I think, that every time I see one of those, I made $10,782.17 while I was eating a cheese sandwich kind of things. Right. I just instantly turn off from that, because,
That's what I do too. I just ignore it when I see the dollar figure, because I just think, well, now I know the agenda immediately. Yeah. And it's not that interesting to me.
One of the things I think is unique about the way you teach copywriting over at Copy Chief is that, I love good copywriting. I love seeing it. I love an elegant wordsmith who can, really nicely craft copy or even just audio. Listening to your podcast, you did I can't remember what episode number it was, maybe 3 or something, where it was a relatively short one, but it was you just eloquently talking about a specific subject, and you could tell you put some thought into it. And but what I love about the way you teach copywriting is it can be an intimidating thing for someone like myself who's not a copywriter, but you kind of break it down to almost that fill in the blank kind of thing. That 60-second sales hook, that formula that really makes it simple for someone who's maybe a little intimidated by the black art of copywriting to get started.
Right. Yeah, I would say that's I discovered almost by accident that I had an ability to help people get fast wins with short copy and actually have fun creating it.
Yeah, you do. You make it fun. That's really
yeah. I think it needs to be fun. Sort of like I was talking about before. Like, you need to feel that passion, and the best pitches you'll ever give in your life are the ones where there's some laughter in between, or you're really connecting with somebody and you're sharing intimate moments and truths and transparency and some laughter. Like that's nothing feels better in life than, those elements of a conversation. And so if I could have somebody even sitting there quietly alone and sort of having a smile on their face as they fill out these formulas, then that's going to, resonate in the copy and give them the best results. And it really helps that I do have this background as a stand-up comic because, comedy is a formulaic art form. Now, we used to use that term negatively in both industries. It can be seen as negative, like especially in comedy, to say, "Oh God, he's so formulaic," meaning the jokes were predictable. But again, what I sort of realized as I matured was it's not about the formula; it's about what you put into it.
Yeah.
Every artist starts with the same canvas, right? It's just how do they color it? And you think about music. I love the blues-based rock, classic rock. And you look at so many great songs that live in the same exact chord structure, but sound nothing alike. The way Jimmy Page plays, 12-bar blues progression compared to how Keith Richards plays it is the difference between how those songs make you feel. And it's the same for writing your copy. It's intimidating when you don't know where to begin. Like the scary part is that blinking cursor on that blank Word doc, and you go, I don't even know where to begin. And so then the next mistake you make is you start at the top, because that's where you start anything, is at the top, and you know that the headline goes at the top. And your ad's not ready for a headline in the beginning. Most great headlines come from somewhere in the body copy, or what we call the bullets, often make for the best headlines. So you just throw that pressure off yourself immediately of coming up with the perfect headline, because it'll most likely emerge once you get deeper into the copy. So yeah, I really like giving people formulas that, easy tasks that give big wins, and just let them prove to themselves, wow, I can do this. I do have everything I need to sell my product well already inside my head, because I'm the person who created this and lives with it every day. Now I just need to take a step back from it, look at it new again, and just fill out this formula, almost like a Mad Lib, where, all you got to do to be funny in a Mad Lib is give a noun, give a verb, give an adjective, and suddenly you've made comedy, right? It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, cool. And I think you're right. I think formula gets a bad rap. But if you look at any story, the hero's journey is pretty much in every big story or every movie you've probably ever seen. But, there's a big difference between Star Wars and, some Sylvester Stallone arm wrestling movie. But it's essentially the same formula, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, totally.
Exactly right. And if you're just starting out, you got to need some sort of framework to get started. So I think automation gets a bad rap as well, because everyone thinks it's cold. But if you use it the right way, if you use it to automate your human touch points with your customers and your clients, like, now's the time to reach out to Kevin because he just looked at this page or he's just consumed this product. So give him a call or send him an email personally or whatever. So it's not the tool, or it's not the formula, it's not the framework.
Right.
It's going to be what you put into it. Exactly right.
That's a great point.
So, it seems like every day there's a new technology or there's a new whiz-bangery coming down the track. And a lot of the time you hear people talking about the differences in Generation X, Generation Y, the millennials, and how do you market to all these people who are so dramatically different. So how do you see this kind of stuff applying in the future where everything's changing so rapidly? Are all the techniques and tactics relatively stable the same, or do we need to adapt them for different, generations and different devices and different lifestyles?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we absolutely do. And probably now more than ever in direct response. Now, it's interesting because when we think of classic direct response, it's the mail and it's the publications. So it started, way back with just ads in magazines or periodicals, and then into the mailboxes. And now, mail is still a huge, huge business. But those, I think, those mediums will eventually wane over time when you just consider that, the millennials don't read newspapers. They don't buy magazines quite as much. They get all their information from a screen, and they're used to instant gratification. And it's so when you consider those elements, you just have to know that, that you have to adjust to the medium. Millennials, people born between 1981 and 1997, are going to make up 50% of the workforce, by the year 2020. And so that's a huge chunk of the market, a $1.4 trillion industry. And it's critical that we start figuring out now how to meet those prospects, where they live.
Right.
Because again, it's, like right now you can send out a link to a VSL or video sales letter or a sales page in even your emails and expect to get read, but it's going to be different. If people are, nobody's going to probably consume an entire video sales letter, 20, 30-minute sales letter on their phone. And even if they do, it's very likely that they're going to go through the ordering process of typing in all that information on their phone. And so at minimum, we realize it's a multi-step process to get the same sale that we can maybe get with just a simple email right now,
And do you find, most of your clients or the people you work with, are they moving away from kind of the sales letter based text copy to more video? Is there kind of a defined split between, VSL and the traditional kind of text-based sales letters?
I wouldn't say there's a defining line just yet. In fact, I had a guy come to me recently who still just didn't understand the video sales letter thing at all, which felt strange, but he spent his entire life in mail and still does very well. So he doesn't really need to understand it necessarily. But it's interesting to meet somebody who's still hesitant about the idea of video. Most people, you still need the text version. So if you're creating a video sales letter for your offer and you're using a format where that's the only thing on the page, there's no pause buttons, things like that. But I think you pretty much have to have pause buttons now on most stuff. But
yeah, that's another kind of big yellow button douchebag tactic to take away all the player controls.
Yeah, that's finally kind of going away. And the other thing is on phones, I don't think they've found a way yet to take away the controls, right? So, if you do click on to watch a video on your phone, you're going to see how long it is. You're going to have controls. So it makes a lot more sense to make it controller friendly than to, again, try to, trap people. I forget what we were saying.
I was just wondering if there's really a migration from text-based sales letters to video sales letters, because I've just noticed kind of in the last, 6-12 months, if I go to a web page, especially when it's someone who's kind of personality based, like, yourself, you go to your site or you go to my site or you go to someone who's basically, they are their business or they have a product that's even remotely complex. If there's not a video there, you kind of like, it's almost an expected thing now.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it is an expected, it's, like you said, and especially if you are representing your product as yourself, or even showing video examples of stuff. It's just much more dynamic experience. And but you always want to have a text version available. One mistake people make is they rely too much on video. Like if you watch any video sales letter, and by that I mean, that's the primary user experience, because the reason we love video as copywriters is we get to control the pitch again. If somebody does watch it in real time and we can do our job to keep them engaged enough to sit through 20 minutes and really feel compelled, then that's a huge win for us, because we know with text-based sales copy, people are skimming around. It's just almost impossible not to. And so we have very little control over how they actually consume the information. And so it's the equivalent of giving a face-to-face, pitch at like a rock concert or something. It'd be really difficult to make that connection. But, you always want to have a text version of your VSL script ready, and you want to offer people the option to read instead of watching video, because there's a lot of times people either just don't like video, or they are not in a position to watch video. They might be at work, sneaking it in on the job. They might be have a sleeping spouse in bed next to them. All kinds of scenarios where text is just a better option.
Yeah. And is the long form sales letter still kind of in vogue? Does it still work? Because I'm just asking because I don't think I've ever bought anything. I don't think I've ever read an entire long form sales letter and bought a product. So, I mean, it must be effective because everyone uses it, but.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm a copywriter, and I look at like really long sales letters and go, "Oh my Lord, like who could read all this?" I just don't have the time or attention span. But you see very modern marketers like Ramit Sethi doing it, and is working incredibly well from him. He's a guy who tests a lot of stuff. Derek Halpern, people like this who are very, very engaged, very video friendly, very modern marketers who still default to the long form sales letter. So yeah, it definitely still works. There's no doubt about it. And a big factor is how engaged is your audience. I know for me, like, it's not that I would never buy something if it had a long sales page as a consumer.
Yeah.
I wouldn't discount it because it has a page like that, but I would probably not need to consume all that information in order to buy. And that's sort of the point of those long form sales letters. It's like, well, tell the whole story to every prospect because you don't know, where somebody's going to be on the spectrum of what they need from you, right? So make sure it's in there. And so that's critical. But I think the thing that we're going to see going forward is that you're going to need to sort of chunk that stuff off and deliver it in different places. I will say that studies show that millennials think long form sales pages are douchey is actually the term they use. And so I think there is potentially a time coming when people will see a page like that and flat out not buy just because it's presented that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's one of the dividing lines I think that's upon us in the next 5 years that, we're just going to have to, it's more about, for millennials, it's about who are you in their world? Are you being endorsed by other people? Is there quick evidence that people in their peer group also subscribe to you? Are you being, transparent with people? Do you happen to see that latest viral video for the guy in the shirtless dude with all the tattoos and a long beard and his apron, and he's out barbecuing and he's telling you what it takes to get in shape?
No, I haven't seen that one.
Okay. I can't remember the guy's name is or anything, but if anybody's seen this video, it's amazing, Barry, to look at how viral this thing is. If you look at the comments, it's all just people tagging their friends.
Yeah.
You got to see this, got to see this, got to see this.
Yeah.
And it's got like 119,000 shares. Can you imagine creating a video? I mean, wow.
Yeah.
And it's just so raw and transparent. And this guy's got such a personality. You know what it is? It's the antithesis of every formal pitch that anybody's ever made to you about what it takes to lose weight. Even if they do a good job of it, the way this guy presented it makes everyone else look like they're just trying to manipulate you, or trying way too hard to win you over to their system or their plan, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a great example of what it's going to look like in the future, and that kind of validation, not only that level of transparency, but that level of endorsement from somebody's peers that everybody's seeing this, everybody's recommending it, and therefore it must be genuine.
It's almost like all the noise in the media, right? So, you can't, all the tweets and the Facebook posts and the videos and yada, yada, yada have become kind of like the 8,000 word long form sales letter. There's so many pitches out there. So how do you cut through all the noise to find the ones that might be relevant to you? And I think it's almost like crowdsourcing through the 8,000 words to find the 5 bullets that are actually going to sell you. You're saying, 40 of my friends have liked this video. So you're right. That validates that message, and I'll pull it out of the noise and spend some time looking at it.
Yeah, good point. Right. It not only validates that it might be worth their attention if they were looking, but just as importantly, they don't want to be left out.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, wait, why are all my friends, they all know about this?
Yeah.
Why don't I know about this?
Yeah.
I better spend some time with it.
Yeah, very good point. But again, I guess at the end of the day, it's all those direct marketing techniques, still apply. It's just a matter of how you tweak them to, I guess what you said before, your ideal customer. Everybody seems to be in the marketing space that in the last kind of 12 months, everyone seems to be talking about, you got to have a continuity program, you got to have a membership area, like it's some great new thing to have. Right. When I was like 15 and getting remember those Columbia House ads? You get like 10 records for $1, and then all of a sudden you're on their continuity plan to get a new album every month or every 2 weeks or whatever. It's exactly the same. It's just been adapted for kind of a new technology and a new era of people.
Yeah, I don't know if it's exactly the same, or at least in regards to the thing that's new. I think is a community aspect.
Yeah,
right.
True.
I think that's the new element. And again, it's part of that validation. So if somebody says, like if Copy Chief were just a free, I guess it doesn't matter if it's paid or not. I mean, if somebody's in the club, like everybody wants to get in the club with the one with the line outside, right? So if you can create some scarcity and some barrier of entry, whether it's simply a closed Facebook group that they have to get permission or get sort of nominated to get in, or they have to actually, pay money to get in and come check it out, then, that says something about them that they've chosen to be a part of that club. And then it's, how do you make them feel once they're inside? Are you confirming and validating that they've made a good choice and that they've sort of found this new home? Because, again, it's sort of that, that peer validation that we're all seeking, whether we realize it or not, since, because Facebook is just a part of everybody's life.
Yeah. And
we're just trained now to gauge what we're supposed to care about by how many people are talking about it.
That's right. All right, Kevin, that was really fantastic. I want to really thank you for coming on, sharing all that great stuff with the listeners. So if there are people like me who want to get better at copywriting and become a better wordsmith, what's the best way for them to start?
Yeah, I'd come right to copychief.com and they can download for free my book called The 60-Second Sales Hook, and that'll give them that formula. We didn't go into the details of it, but it's a joke formula I took from my days as a stand-up, and I just changed the last part of it to make it a really effective sales hook, sort of sales messaging tool. And it's fantastic for your about page on your website, or if you have a lead magnet that you want to present people with. It's really the perfect kind of message for that. So go grab the free book, 60-Second Sales Hook. If you want to check out Copy Chief, I keep the price pretty low for you to come, roll the dice on a month, and you'll get lots of great stuff inside there.
Yeah, if you could maybe just for the listeners expand on what Copy Chief is and what happens inside that community, that'd be great.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so Copy Chief is two things. It's a training center. So if you just want more stuff like the 60-Second Sales Hook, I mentioned the question authority worksheet is in there. All kinds of, simple formulas and templates to make copywriting easier for you. Then we have trainings with those worksheets. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of is a community where you can post up new copy you've written based on these worksheets, or existing copy that you've been running for years, and you just want feedback on it to see how you could bring it back to life or raise your conversions. You can post it up for the community, and you'll get top level feedback from other professional copywriters and other business owners. And I guess the third element is that you could treat it like a marketplace. If you know you could use a professional copywriter in your life, but you're really kind of skeeved at the idea of having to go completely blindly into somebody's world and pay them money and have no idea if what they're giving you back is even good or not, then Copy Chief solves that by giving you a baseline education about what good copy looks like and giving you direct access to professional copywriters who you're not having hire blindly, but you're interacting with first before you ever decide that that might be somebody you want to work with.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. And as we mentioned at the beginning of the show, the Truth About Marketing podcast, Kevin's new podcast, I'd urge everybody to check it out. Really great stuff there too.
Thanks, Barry. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate you sharing your time with us. And we'll see you over at copychief.com.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, brother. See you. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode. You can find all the show notes over at theactivemarketer.com/Kevin. And while you're there, I'd urge you to check out our newly updated Ninja Guide to Tagging, everything you need to know about how to use tags in your marketing automation. So head over to theactivemarketer.com, download that free guide, and get started straight away. I'll see you next week. In the meantime, get out there and design, automate, and scale your business to the next level with sales and marketing automation. See you, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the Active Marketer Podcast. You can find the show notes and all the latest marketing automation news over at theactivemarketer.com.